Europe is smack in the middle of the biggest energy shift in its history, and right at the heart of it all is a technology that's scaling up faster than pretty much anything else: energy storage. So today, we're going to unpack this whole revolution by zooming in on Spain, a country that basically turned a massive energy crisis into a blueprint for the grid of the future.
To get a sense of the scale we're talking about, just look at this number. In late 2025, Europe's combined energy storage capacity blew past the 100 gigawatt mark. I mean, that is a staggering amount of backup power. To put that into perspective, it's enough juice to power the entire peak demand of industrial giants like Germany and the Netherlands at the same time. Okay, so that brings up a really big question. If you have all this backup capacity sitting on the grid, how on earth did Spain and Portugal get hit with a serious blackout in April of 2025? It kind of doesn't add up, right? Well, the answer to that paradox tells you everything you need to know about the challenges of this new energy era.
To really get to the bottom of that blackout, we first have to understand what that 100 gigawatt milestone actually means. See, it's not just about raw power. It's about giving the grid flexibility, the ability to adapt second by second to the constant ups and downs of renewable energy. And that flexibility, it comes from two very different places.
Right, so that 100 gigawatts isn't all the same thing, and this is the crucial part. It's basically split down the middle. A little over half is what you'd call legacy pumped hydro, giant water batteries built into mountains. It's a super reliable technology we've had for decades. But the real story, the one that's changing everything, is that other half, which is almost all battery storage, and it's growing at an absolutely breakneck pace.
And this chart just shows you the insane speed we're talking about. Look at this. Europe's battery fleet grew tenfold, a tenfold expansion in just 4 years. That is going from a pretty niche technology to a core piece of the grid's infrastructure in what feels like the blink of an eye. And it's this incredible speed that makes our story in Spain even possible.
Okay, so with all that in mind, let's zoom in on Spain, which is the perfect example of this paradox. Spain is a solar powerhouse, right? A massive success story. But that very success has accidentally created this really complex, even dangerous problem for its own power grid.
So here's the core of the issue. On really sunny days, Spain's solar farms are just cranking out so much electricity that they completely flood the market. And what happens then? The price of power crashes. A lot of the time, it goes all the way down to zero or even negative. I mean, this is just catastrophic for the solar farms. How are you supposed to stay in business if the very thing you sell is literally worthless?
And this is where the stakes get incredibly high. As one analyst put it, storage isn't just an optional add-on anymore. It's become an absolute necessity. Why? To stop billions of euros worth of renewable projects from becoming stranded assets, which is just a fancy way of saying power plants that can't make any money and are at risk of going bankrupt.
This brings us right back to that blackout. That event was a huge wake-up call. It forced Spain's grid operator, Red Electrica, to take some really dramatic steps. They basically had to start re-engineering the rules of their entire grid in real time to stop another catastrophe from happening. But here's the twist. When they investigated what happened, it turned out the blackout wasn't the fault of the renewables. It was actually the failure of the old, conventional power plants. The ones that were supposed to be the bedrock of stability. They couldn't manage the grid's voltage properly. And all of a sudden, it was crystal clear that this new renewable grid needed new tools to do these essential stabilizing jobs. So in response, the grid operator rolled out these new anti-blackout rules. You can see they're doing things like making scheduling deadlines way tighter and forcing everyone to stick to a real-time schedule. But I want you to focus on that last row, Operating Procedure 7.4. This was the true game changer. It created a brand new market for something called voltage control. So what the heck is dynamic voltage control? Well, think of it like a shock absorber for the grid. Instead of just pushing out power at a fixed setting, assets with smart inverters, like batteries, can now get paid to constantly and actively manage the grid's electrical pressure, keeping the whole system stable from one second to the next. And honestly, they are perfectly built for this job.
Creating a new market is great, but it's pretty useless if you don't have actual projects on the ground to participate in it. So to solve that little problem, the Spanish government stepped in with a plan to inject massive amounts of capital to kickstart a nationwide storage construction boom.
And we're not talking about pocket change here. The headline number is almost 820 million euros in grants. And this money is specifically earmarked to build 126 brand new storage projects. This isn't some vague promise either. It's a huge financial commitment with a hard deadline. All of these have to be up and running by 2029.
So where's all that money going? Well, this table really shows you their strategy. Notice that the biggest slice of the pie, 69 projects, is for hybrid storage. That means pairing batteries directly with existing solar and wind farms. It's like a surgical approach to fight something called curtailment. That's when a grid operator forces a perfectly good solar farm to shut down just because there's too much power on the grid. This solves that problem right at the source.
Okay, so you've got the tech, you've got the market, you've got the money. But all of that can get stopped dead by the single biggest roadblock for clean energy all across Europe: the agonizingly slow and complicated process of getting a permit to actually build something.
You can have the best project in the world with full funding, but if it gets stuck in paperwork for years and years, you've got what everyone calls permitting gridlock. It is the silent killer of the energy transition. And Spain decided to solve this with a really radical legal move.
They passed a law that creates a declaration of public utility for energy storage. Now, this is huge. It basically puts a battery project on the same legal level as critical infrastructure, like a highway or a major transmission line. It gives developers powerful legal tools to cut through local red tape and fast-track getting the land they need, which takes a huge amount of risk out of the whole process.
And this wasn't just some dusty old decree that sat on a shelf. Regions all across Spain immediately put it into action. Galicia started letting storage be built on rural land. The Valencian community created an extraordinary fast-track process, and Andalusia just straight up cut the public comment periods in half. All of it is designed to do one thing: get steel in the ground fast.
So when you put all these different pieces together, the new technical rules, the fire hose of money, and the legal reforms, a really clear story starts to emerge from Spain's crisis. And it's a lesson that applies way beyond just their borders.
What we've really witnessed is the incredibly fast evolution of energy storage. I mean, it started out as just an optional add-on, a way for a solar farm to maybe squeeze out a little bit more profit. Then, after the blackout, it became a critical grid stabilizer, providing absolutely essential services. And now, it's been legally recognized as a public utility, as fundamental as the wires themselves.
In just a couple of years, energy storage went from being this interesting optional technology to being the absolute cornerstone of a modern, reliable, renewable-powered grid.
And that brings us to the final big question. The entire world is basically committed to tripling renewable energy by 2030. So as every country out there rushes to build more solar and wind, you gotta wonder, is every nation on a path to facing its own version of the Spanish paradox? And will they be able to react as quickly as Spain has?